Hello everyone, my name is Morgan, and today I'm going to tell you about the 9 best games of all time, according to this random girl on the internet who doesn't matter at all. Who? So this video is heavily inspired by Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie. I saw them do their videos where they had this 9x9 square, and they talked about their 9 favorite video games of all time. And I love video games, and I'm very passionate about my favorite video games, so I thought it would be fun to do. Honestly, I'll be surprised if anyone really watches this video. It's just gonna be me rambling about video games that some of you might not care about, but hey, if you're here, thanks. Maybe I can inspire you to play some of these video games, or maybe some of you also love some of these video games. So now I am just some random nerd on the internet, so if any gamer bros stumble upon this video, you know, some of my choices may be a bit girly for you. There will be 2 otomes on this list. There's JRPGs, visual novels, like, yeah, I've got a couple mainstream games, but like, don't expect to see like Dark Souls on here, okay? I'm not that kind of gamer, and that's okay. So let's just start with this first box here, which is going to go to my all-time favorite video game, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. This game is perfect in my eyes. There's not a single thing in this game that I can complain about. I love it. I have been through this game more times than I can count. Like, I'm obsessed. It makes me so happy. It is so good. It is the perfect ending to Nathan Drake's story. And as much as I would love to see another Uncharted game, I just don't think there should be one, because this is literally, like I said, it's the perfect end to Nathan Drake's story. And yeah, I know there could be like spin-off games, and The Lost Legacy was cool and all, but it's just not the same without Nate. I think part of my attachment to this game comes from the fact that Uncharted is my childhood. I was like 7 or 8 when the first game came out, I think. And trust me, I was not playing it back then. I really sucked at video games. I was not about to play Uncharted and face those weird zombie men. But my dad played it. My dad played all the Uncharted games, and I remember watching him play and thinking the games were so cool and loving them. And then Uncharted 4 came out, and oh my god, just seeing the development of Nate and all the other characters was so good. They took what they were trying to do in Uncharted 3 with them like questioning like Nate why he keeps doing this stuff, and they perfected it in 4 because 3 falls flat. 3 really does fall flat. But Uncharted 4, the story, it's perfect. The characters, perfect. The relationships between all of them, like Nate and Sam, and Elena and Nate, and Sully and Elena and Nate and Sam, and Rafe with Sam and Nate, and oh, they're all so perfect. It's so good. And the story itself is amazing. I love that they brought in Sam. He's my favorite Uncharted character. Like, he came into the 4th game and swept me off my feet. He's just such a good character. The story of Nate and Sam warms my heart. I love Nate's development in this game. How him and Elena realize that this life is not something that they can just get rid of. It's too important to them. And the way that Nate realizes that, like, he's gotta leave this stuff behind. It's getting to be too much. But I also love that, you know, Sam, who's been in jail all this time, is like, you know what? I'm still gonna go out there and do this. You got to live this life while I was in jail. I'm gonna go out there and do my thing. Sam and Sully Gameware. Give it to me. The actual game itself is so beautiful. Like, oh my god. I've watched a million Let's Plays of the game, but nothing will compare to playing it yourself without the YouTube rendering. Like, it is so beautiful. I've never seen a game so beautiful in my life. Oh my god, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I think the gameplay is really fun. I like that you can actually mark enemies to actually try and stealth, and you can stealth kill people. Like, you really can't do it that well in the other games at all. But you can in this, even though I suck at it. I know some people are like, but there's no giant set pieces like in Uncharted 2. Look, I love Uncharted 2 as much as the next guy, but like 4 hits different for me. I don't need the giant set pieces. The ending though, when Elena like has the picture and she sets it next to the other one, and it's like, it zooms in and it shows Sam and Nate when they were kids, and then Nate, Elena, and Sully in the other picture, and like Nate's theme starts to like swell up and then the credits hit. I tear up every time. Every time. It gets me so hard. The characters, the relationships, the story, the gameplay, everything about this game is perfect. I love it. It makes me emotional. It's my all-time favorite game. I've been through it a million times, and I will go through it a million more times. Now, the next 3 games on this list are kind of in a giant 3-way tie. I love them all so much, and like I can't choose between them. You know, it's like trying to make me pick my favorite child. I can't do it. First one we're going to talk about though is Persona 5 Royal. The original Persona 5, I mean, don't get me wrong, the original Persona 5 is amazing, but like, Royal's on this other level. They took all the things that could have used fixing in the original game and just made it so much better in Royal. Like, the gameplay even, like, is so much more fun in Royal, and Kamoshida's Palace isn't stupidly hard. And I love the addition of the 3rd semester. I love it. I haven't really mentioned it on this channel yet before, but Goro Akechi is my all-time favorite character. I love him to death. Like, oh, he owns my heart. He means everything to me. What they did with him in this game, obviously I'm gonna prefer it. Giving him his own confidant that's not an auto rank, and like, you know, making him not dead. That we love that. We love that Goro Akechi is alive and well. And everything they did with him in the third semester, I loved it. Speaking of the third semester, it's a masterpiece. It's literally the best arc in the game. Like, it's so good. It made me so emotional when I Believe started playing at the end of the game. I cried. I did. I teared up. You're just finding out that I'm an emotional person when it comes to video games in this video, is what's happening. The third semester is just perfect in every way. It is a way better ending to the game than freaking Yaldabeth 2 and the whole Mementos thing. Like, I'll be honest, I hate that freaking dungeon, and Yaldabeth annoys me, and this ending is so much better. You know, maybe the very end of the game isn't as all happy-go-lucky as the original, but like, I don't care. The third semester gave all the characters the last little bit of development they needed, and then they all realized what they wanted to do with their lives and were like gonna go pursue their dreams, and that's an even better ending in my opinion. And Dr. Maruki, he's such a good character. I wasn't expecting anything from him at all, but wow, oh my god. He's like one of my favorite Persona characters now. He's so interesting. He makes you question all of your morals and everything you think, and that is exactly what I want in a character. I don't love Kasumi, I'll be honest. I find her kind of annoying, but like I get why they added her, and I can ignore her for the most part, so like it doesn't really bother me that much, you know? Aside from, you know, the royal aspects, all the new stuff, the actual main game, of course, is an 11 out of 10 experience. The gameplay is so fun. Also, can we talk about how stylish Persona 5 is? Like, how are they gonna top that in Persona 6? They can't. I don't see how they can top Persona 5 style. It's just that freaking good. The story and the characters itself I really, really enjoy. It is a lot darker than Persona 4, but like, I'll talk about this later. I feel like Persona 5, it has good characters, but the story is like its main shining thing, whereas Persona 4 is the opposite. I love the whole metaverse concept and, you know, changing the villains' hearts, and the awakening scenes are so good. My only complaint about this game is the freaking Okumura arc. I hate the Okumura arc so much, it's so dumb. But you know what, that's not saying anything new. I feel like everyone feels that way about the Okumura arc. The music, perfect. The story, perfect. It is just so intriguing and so interesting. I love Royal. Next up in the three-way tie, we've got Fire Emblem Three Houses. I've never replayed a game as much as I have Fire Emblem Three Houses, except maybe Uncharted 4. Those two are giving each other a run for their money. I can go through both those games 7 million times. In fact, at the time I'm recording this video, I started replaying Blue Lions for the 70 millionth time yesterday. I just really love good RPGs like this, and the setting of this game is so cool. I love that it takes place like way far in the past and sort of like a medieval, I guess, kind of time. I don't know if medieval is the right word, but it's got knights and princes and emperors and all that kind of stuff. And I love the fantasy element of like magic and like beasts and stuff. But the story itself I think is so cool that like you pick a house and then you see everything from that person's perspective and how everyone else is sort of like the enemy and you gotta stop them, and then you go to the next house and it's like the opposite, and then by the time you finish the game you realize that like everyone sort of had the same perspective the whole time and there was no reason for them to be fighting in the first place. This whole game could have been resolved so much easier if the house leaders just talked to each other. The replayability is insane. I've played this game so many times and every time I have a different experience. This is coming from the girl that mostly only plays Blue Lions and then marries Dimitri every time. Even then, each playthrough is different for me. I love the support system and the characters. There's so many characters in this game and all of them have like love put into them, you can tell. Everyone has their own backstory and their own motivations that like make them who they are, and that is so cool that each character, like I love character. Characters are my favorite thing about any story. So the fact that all the characters in the story have so much depth to them, I love it. It's great. It's so interesting. Obviously the Blue Lions art was my favorite. Dimitri is my husband. I love him to death. I love that man. I love the Blue Lions themselves. They are my Blue Lion babies. I love them to death. Yeah, I play this game a lot. It's just so much fun. The story really makes you feel something. The characters will make you feel something. Okay, let me just rant about Dimitri a little bit, because like that's the best part of the game is him. Like his development, I love it. His childhood, and then like he's just like sort of hiding this darkness in him the whole time, and like he wants to get revenge for his family, and he just hears their voices like begging him like, you're the one that survived, you have to avenge us, you have to get your revenge, please. Basically haunting him, making him think that like this is what the dead wants. and that he has to avenge the dead, and that the dead are like upset with him for living, and so he has to like avenge them. And then he thinks it's Edelgard, and he goes freaking insane. Post time skip, you can't even like hang out with him. His supports are locked because he's emotionally not there. He can't bond with anyone. And then when you finally reach out to him and he breaks, he realizes the dead, this isn't what they want. They just want him to be happy, and you can bond with him again. At the end, he's just such a man. He's a king. He's a leader. He is selfless. He cares for others. He reached his hand out to Edelgard even after all that she did. That bad? Okay, I'm gonna shut up. Next, for the final game of the three-way tie, is Persona 4 Golden. I love Persona 5 because, you know, the story's like more serious. What I love about Persona 4 is that you get the best of both worlds with it. You get the interesting dark part of like trying to solve a murder, but at the same time, it's such a feel-good game where you get to hang out with your friends all the time, and like, it's so much fun. There's so many good, funny, lighthearted scenes in this game that like, oh my god, sometimes you forget that you're trying to solve a murder. Then the game perfectly like goes into these like very serious scenes and it's like, hey, this is what this game really is, remember? And it's done so well. Like I said before, I feel like Persona 5's strength is the story, whereas Persona 4's strength is the characters. Not that either game is bad, at the opposite, but that's just their strengths. All the party members in Persona 4 are so lovable. Like, oh my god, how could you dislike any of them? I love them all to death. Take a shot every time I say I love them all to death in this video. This game feels like, you know what, I'm hanging out with my awesome group of friends that I don't have in real life, and I'm just having a good time. I do prefer the palaces in Persona 5 over the random dungeons of Persona 4, but it's still fun. I still have a lot of fun in the dungeons, except the freaking video game dungeon. Screw that dungeon, I hate it so much. But yeah, a lot of my praises for this game are similar to Persona 5 because they're both Persona games. It's got a good story, great characters. I just love it. And the OST in this game is so good. There's not one bad song, and each song makes you feel so good and happy. I love it. It's such a feel-good game. Next up on the list, we have Collar X Malice, which is my favorite Otome ever. Collar X Malice is the best Otome I've ever played, and I will be lucky to find an Otome as good as it again. So first of all, the main 5 characters themselves are all so good and lovable and interesting. My favorite is Shiraishi. He is right behind Akechi in terms of favorite characters of all time. And right behind Shiraishi is Daiichi. And then my favorite after Shiraishi is Sasuzuka. I love him too. My sweet donut tsundere. So obviously it's an Otome, so I do enjoy the romantic routes aspect of it, but that's not like the only thing I love about it. Like, I feel like really anyone could enjoy this game if they really wanted to, because the story itself is so interesting. So if you don't know, this game, it takes place in Japan, and basically there's like this terrorist organization called Adonis, and every month there's a new incident which pretty much results in someone's death. And the police are trying to investigate it and failing miserably. So the main character, who is a rookie cop, she gets kidnapped by Adonis and gets this poisonous collar placed on her, and the only way she can remove it and, you know, not die is if she solves the truth behind the incidents. But she can't tell the police about it, so she's working with this detective agency, who are the 5 love interests. And each route sort of focuses on a different incident. Like I said, there's one each month. And so on each route, you partner up with one of the characters and discover the truth behind that incident. And they're always like so interesting and like morally sort of gray, I guess. Both the perpetrators of the incidents and the victims have so much depth to them. Like, the cases themselves are actually super interesting, and it's like you're trying to solve this mystery in the middle of having a romantic romance with a pretty boy. Like, I love almost all the characters in this game. Even the side characters are just super fascinating and interesting. This game is so good, and the OST on this game, oh, this game means a lot to me. It is another one that I replay a lot. I replay it a lot. I love it. It's the best Otome I've ever played. I highly recommend. The next game we have is Zero Escape 999. Now, I love all the Zero Escape games, but this one is easily my favorite. So 999 is a sci-fi kind of mystery type game. Basically, 9 people get trapped on a sinking boat, and they have 9 hours to get out. And how do they get out? Well, they have to find a door with the number 9 on it. Hence the name 999. This is a visual novel game, but it also has escape room sequences, which are really fun and interesting. And I feel like a genius when I get them right. And I especially like this game because I'm smart enough to figure them out in this game. Whereas in the second game, they're too hard. I can't get them. The characters are super interesting in this game, and it's really fun to try and figure out how like all of them are connected to either each other or like why they're there. And of course, this is an Uchikoshi game. And if there's one thing to be noted about an Uchikoshi game, it is that you will never, ever be able to predict the twist. And not being able to predict the twist isn't a bad thing, because it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's one of those twists where, like, when it's revealed, you look back and you're like, oh my god, that's why all this stuff was said and done, and like when you go through the game again, everything makes sense and you're like, oh. I also love the fact that in this game, what doors you choose to go through have such an impact on the ending. Like if you go through door 4, then door 3, then these people are gonna die. But if you then go through door 8, then you know, maybe you're gonna survive, or maybe this person's gonna die. And it's so interesting. This game is also so freaking funny. Like so much of the stuff the characters say in this game cracks me up, especially during the escape rooms, and especially Junpei. Junpei is like one of the funniest protagonists ever. He just says the dumbest shit. I won't go into too much more detail about 999 because I think everyone deserves to experience this game blind, like I did for the first time. It is just so good. Next, we have the second otome on this list, which is Dandelion Wishes Brought to You. Now, some of you may be going, hey, Morgan, in a previous video, you say that Cafe Enchant was the second best otome you've ever played. That is true. It is the second best otome I've ever played, but my second favorite otome is Dandelion. I feel like a lot of you probably have not heard of Dandelion, but you probably most likely have heard of the creators, because the creators of this game is the company Chariots, aka the same people who made Mystic Messenger. Dandelion was their first game. It's different from a lot of otomes because it's kind of got like a grinding stats mechanic that you have to go through kind of a lot. It's certainly not like the greatest otome in the world, but I have an intense emotional attachment to it. It's basically about this girl named Hee-jung who wakes up one day and there's bunnies and cats in her room, and she's like, what the heck? And eventually one day, these bunnies and cats turn into real boys, and then you can date those boys. No, I have a very intense emotional attachment to this game. Reason for that being, so back in my sophomore year of high school, I was really struggling and having a very hard time with a lot of things. And at this time, a Let's Play of this game was posted by Dodger and Cry, and I decided to watch it. And to this day, it is still the funniest freaking Let's Play I have ever watched. I go back and watch it if I'm feeling down because it will never fail to make me cry laughing. It is that good. And that Let's Play and this game was something during that hard time that made me truly, truly happy. And my favorite character is actually the route that they did first, which was Jiwoo. And Jiwoo was and still is a huge, huge comfort character for me. I love him so much. He's the reason bunnies became my favorite animal. That's right, bunnies are my favorite animal, and it is because of this boy right here. This tsundere bunny. And one day I'm going to get a bunny as a pet. It is going to be a brown spotted bunny, and I'm going to name it Jiwoo, okay? It's gonna happen. But like this game comes off as like, oh, like cutesy little otome about animal boys, but it's like actually really deep, each of the routes. Like there's a lot to these characters, and the endings are kind of angsty, not gonna lie. But I think that's like part of what makes this otome so interesting is that the endings are not like your typical otome. Dandelion also has the best otome opening of all time. Like I think we all know that most otomes have pretty good openings, but like this opening is god tier. And yes, it is easily way better than Mystic Messenger's opening, which I know he's saying something because that's a good opening. I used to just listen to this song on repeat like all day, every day. It's so good. Go listen to it. It's amazing. Look, they didn't have to go so hard for an opening for a game about dating cat and bunny boys, but they did. And I'm so glad they did because it's just so freaking good. I really love all the characters in this game, especially Jiwoo, and their dynamic with each other is like a lot of fun. Also, speaking of that Let's Play, if you watched my my video called I Lose My Mind Over Your Turn to Die, one of the character voices I do in that video is highly, highly inspired by Dodger's Gion voice in the Let's Play.
Yeah, when I'm bored, I tease the rabbits for fun.
So Sarah, I don't want you to say that weird bored thing either. Yeah.
But yeah, I had to put Dandelion on here because I'm so grateful for it, and this game never fails to make me happy, so it's definitely going on there. Next up, we have Resident Evil 7. So I watched Resident Evil 7 back when it came out in 2017? Yes, 2017 that was. It was my first Resident Evil game, and I fell in love with it. I watched Let's Plays of it over and over again. And then of course Resi 8 recently came out, and I watched that, and I loved it. And so I decided to go back through and go through all of the Resident Evil games, specifically Resi 1 through 6. I haven't done all the side games like Code Veronica and Revelations because I just, quite frankly, I don't care. And you know, I love all of the Resident Evil games, except 5. 5 makes me irrationally angry. I don't like that game. But 7 is still my favorite. You know, maybe it has to do with the fact that it was my first Resident Evil game. Maybe that's the rule with these kind of things. The one you play first is your favorite. Resident Evil 7 is just very special to me. It is the exact kind of survival horror I like, with the item management, and there's always some sort of danger or monster constantly following you and chasing after you. I love that they switched to first person for this game and kept that for Resi 8. Like, I think that makes the game so much scarier. And that's something I really love about this game, is that it's scary. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that it is first person, because like when I'm playing Resi 2, I can be like, oh, this is happening to Leon, not me. I'm detaching myself. And even though we're playing as Ethan in 7, like, feels like it's happening to you. And also the game is just genuinely scary. Like, it really is. But I think part of what I love so much about Resident Evil 7 is the story and the characters, specifically the Bakers and their story. They did such a good job at making villains that are scary, but also sympathetic at the same time. Like, you feel bad for them. Like, I don't want to kill them. Oh, and I think that's the best kind of villain. And I think that's what makes the Bakers like some of the best villains in Resident Evil. Like, yeah, Nemesis is cool and scary and all, but like, I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad when he falls in the river and he can't swim. The Bakers, it's so sad that they were this normal family who was trying to help a little girl that they thought was hurt, and it resulted in them going crazy against their will, and now they're constantly killing people, and they've mutated into these horrible monsters. And then the fact that like, I guess now that 8 is out, we can call it the Mega Mycete, but like their consciousness is in there, and they know that their body is like doing these horrible things and they're hurting these people, but like they're stuck, they can't do anything. I feel so bad for them, and their story is just so freaking interesting. And also, you gotta love Ethan and Mia. The fact that Ethan would go to the ends of the earth to protect Mia, and then Mia, in the end, Mia does the same to help him. Like, we love it. We love them. Resi 7 is just so good, guys. It's so good. And I love that it's like a standalone game that like, you don't have to really know anything about the previous games to get into it. I love the setting too, the house, it's scary. Yeah, I just really love this game. But the only thing that I don't love about this game is the section on the boat. I kind of don't like that section, it kind of drags a bit. Other than that, it's so fun. My favorite part of the game is easily the first half, where like, you go through the section where Jack's chasing you, and then you got Marguerite, and then you go through Lucas's whole like crazy barn place. If you're looking for a good survival horror, and you want to jump into the Resident Evil series, jump in with 7, you know? Go for it! Screw going to the beginning, you know, that's a lot of work. Go to 7. And now it is time for the final game on this list. Now I was struggling between 2 games for this final spot. It was either going to be Resident Evil 8 or The Somnium Files. Now I ultimately decided to go with Resident Evil 8. I was like, well, maybe I should go with because I just did a Resident Evil game as the last one, but I just don't have the same emotional attachment to as I do Resi 8. Don't get me wrong, I love and if there was a 10th Square, I would be going in that one, which is made by the same person who made 999. It is a great game. Mystery, detective, sci-fi, visual novel. Go play that game. It is seriously amazing. No game has ever plot twisted me as hard as that game. If I could erase my memory of The Somnium Files and play it again, I would. It is very, very good. But I just have more of an emotional attachment to Resident Evil Village, so that's what's going in the 9th Square. 8 has the same gameplay mechanics as 7, so I love that. It's first person, Ethan is the protagonist, you know, we're picking up where we left off with him, so I love that. And I love the setting of this game. It is beyond cool. I love the village, I love the castle and the factory. It's so freaking cool. The shining stars of this game though that have me so attached to this game are easily the 4 lords. Like, they're the best part of this game. I mean, first of all, they're all cool as hell. I love the concept of the Cadu, I'm still not sure which it's called. And it gets implanted in them and it gives them like these really cool powers, but also sort of building off of what I was saying about the Bakers. While the lords are cool villains, they're also like really sympathetic too, especially Donna Moreau and Heisenberg. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Lady D too, and she is sympathetic in her own way. Like, she's just this poor tall lady living in a castle who was so lonely that she made bug children, and then Ethan comes in and kills them. But the other 3 are just so much more sympathetic to me. Like Donna's whole backstory with her sister and how she only talks through Angie, and like poor Moreau just wanted Mother Miranda to love him, but the Cadeau made him all ugly and gross, so no one likes him, and I feel so bad for him. And don't even get me started on Heisenberg. Oh my god. He's my favorite character in this game. He's my favorite Resident Evil character, period. The fact that he was kidnapped as a child and experimented on, his freedom was taken away from him, and all he wants is to get revenge on Mother Miranda so he can be free from her. It gets me, and I will never forgive the developers for not giving us the choice to join Heisenberg. It should have been there. I don't even care if it's a bad end. Give me the choice. He deserved to have help, okay? He did. He did. That was my complaint about this game, is that we should have been able to join Heisenberg, and this DLC that they announced, I hope part of it is at least they add that choice, because I know a lot of other people have complained about this too. But the lords are just freaking awesome. I love them and their whole story with Mother Miranda and her control over them, and I just feel so bad for them. But they're also just so freaking badass, and I love them. And I love the whole thing with Ethan and Rose, and he's such a good dad, and he deserves better, and that ending just breaks my heart. But yes, I do prefer 7 over 8, mainly because there are just a few things about 8 that I don't love. Number 1 being that each lord should have been around for way longer, okay? Like, they're all so freaking cool. They all deserved way longer parts, especially Donna. Especially Donna, her part was so short. Of course, there's my other complaint, which is there was no join Heisenberg option. It's not fair. And then my third is just that it's not as scary. Like I said about 7, one of the things I love about it is how freaking scary it is. And in 8, really the only scary part is the Beneviento house with the freaking fetus baby. Oh god. And it's scary when you first arrive in the village and like all the lichens are everywhere and stuff too, but it just doesn't compare to the fear you feel in the start of 7 when you open your eyes and you're sitting at that table with the Baker family and Jack starts chasing you around. I just love the element of having an enemy constantly chasing you around. And we do have Lady D chasing you around, which does get your adrenaline pumping, but she's a MILF. I'm not scared of MILFs. I would have liked for like the other lords to chase you around a little bit too, you know? But yes, I do have those complaints, they're minor. Overall, I love this game to death and I'm very emotionally attached to it and the lords, and I cannot wait for the DLC. Wow, I rambled a lot. I just love these 9 games so freaking much. I could talk about them forever, and I did. Anyways, yeah, I'm glad I did this video. It was fun. I loved talking about my favorite games. If any of you actually did watch this video and stayed till the end, let me know if you were to make a square like this, what 9 games you would put on it. And let me know if you love any of these games just like me. And if you haven't played any of these games, go play them. They're so good. I know when I watched Jack and Felix's video on this, they had like some like older games, and I felt like, oh, well, some of these games are fairly new. Some of them I've only played within the last 4 years. Should I be putting like old nostalgic games on there that I've used to play? But I just don't have the same emotional attachment to those as I do these. But yes, that will do it for this video, guys. If you actually watched it, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed me rambling about my favorite games. I'd love to hear you rant about your favorite games now, so if you want to, leave a comment. I would love to read your rant about games you love. And with that, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. Bye!